If you brush your teeth every morning and find blood on your toothbrush. If your gums are swollen and tender when you eat. Or if you have been putting off a dental visit. While hoping the problem will resolve on its own, this video is for you. What we are going to talk about today is something most people throw straight into the trash without a second thought. The small green calyx at the top of an eggplant. For centuries, traditional medicine across East Asia has used dried eggplant calyx to treat mouth ulcers, gum inflammation, and toothache. Most people dismiss this as old folk wisdom. But something changed recently. Scientists began running quantitative analyses on this discarded part of the eggplant, and the results showed that what our grandmothers threw away may be one of the most concentrated natural sources of anti-inflammatory compounds we have ever overlooked. Start with the scale of the problem. National health data shows that approximately 23.4% of Korean adults over 19 have periodontal disease, meaning roughly 1 in 4 adults is already dealing with active gum disease. After age 35, the figure rises even higher, with 3 out of 4 adults estimated to have some form of gum disease. Periodontal disease is not just a dental inconvenience. Chronic inflammation in the gum tissue is linked to worsening of cardiovascular disease and diabetes through systemic inflammatory pathways. Protecting gum health is a whole body matter. So what exactly is inside an eggplant calyx? A study published in an international journal used LC-MS chromatography to identify and quantify the bioactive compounds in dried eggplant calyx extract. The results were striking. Per gram of dry extract, the calyx contained 650.9 micrograms of p-coumaric acid, 488.2 micrograms of caffeic acid, 305.4 micrograms of catechin, 301.4 micrograms of myristin, 263.6 micrograms of rutin, 261.8 micrograms of luteolin, and 257.2 micrograms of camphorol. Every single one of these compounds belongs to the polyphenol family, recognized for potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity. A separate analysis comparing anthocyanin content across different parts of the eggplant found that the peel had the highest anthocyanin content at 138.05 mg per 100 grams, and the calyx came in at 135.94 mg per 100 grams. These two values are nearly identical, meaning the calyx is just as rich in anthocyanins as the skin we carefully eat. The pulp, which is the part we actually cook and eat, had substantially lower concentrations. The part we discard is the most concentrated. Total flavonoid content in the calyx was measured at 49.44 milligrams. Rutin equivalent per gram of dry extract using water extraction, and 52.60 milligrams per gram with hydroalcoholic extraction. In antioxidant activity testing using the DPPH-free radical scavenging method, eggplant calyx extract at a concentration of 15 mg per milliliter showed an inhibition rate of 82.51 to 82.77%. This represents very strong antioxidant capacity. Now let us understand precisely how these compounds act on gum tissue. Periodontal disease and gum bleeding are driven by chronic oxidative stress and inflammatory cytokine activity inside the gum tissue. When bacterial plaque builds up along the gum line, immune cells release reactive oxygen species and inflammatory mediators, including TNF-alpha, interleukin-1 beta, and interleukin-6. These reactive oxygen species attack the cell membranes, lining gum blood vessels, increase vascular permeability, and cause bleeding. The inflammatory cytokines break down the connective tissue of the periodontium and gradually destroy the alveolar bone. Rutin, one of the key flavonoids found in eggplant calyx, was tested in a controlled study involving diabetic rats with experimentally induced periodontitis. After rutin administration, malondialdehyde levels in gingival tissue, which is the standard biomarker for oxidative stress damage, were significantly reduced. At the same time, the antioxidant enzymes catalase and glutathione showed significant increases in both blood and gingival tissue. The conclusion from this research was clear. Rutin can reduce oxidative stress in gum. tissue and enhance the antioxidant status of the periodontium. The anti-inflammatory flavonoids in eggplant calyx, particularly rutin, are thus not just theoretical. They have demonstrated measurable effects in gingival tissue. Nasonin, the primary anthocyanin in eggplant, calyx and peel, is a potent superoxide, anion scavenger with documented activity against lipid peroxidation. Lipid peroxidation of vascular cell membranes in the gum tissue is a direct cause of increased vascular permeability and bleeding. Nasonin blocks this process. It also has anti-angiogenic properties that may help reduce gum swelling associated with chronic inflammation. P-coumaric acid and caffeic acid, the two most abundant compounds in the calyx, inhibit the nitrogen monofluoride Kb signaling pathway, which is the master regulator of inflammatory cytokine production. When nitrogen monofluoride Kb is suppressed, the downstream production of TNF-alpha, interleukin-1 beta, and interleukin-6 decreases. These are exactly the inflammatory mediators that destroy periodontal tissue. Catechin, meanwhile, has documented antimicrobial activity against Streptococcus mutans, the primary bacteria responsible for tooth decay, meaning eggplant calyx tea, used as a rinse, may simultaneously target the bacteria, causing both cavities and gum disease. Here are 3 practical recipes for using dried eggplant calyx at home. The first recipe is eggplant calyx tea. Collect the calyx from 3 to 5 eggplants after cooking. Wash them thoroughly and dry them completely. Spread them in a sunny spot for 5 to 7 days, or use an oven at 60 to 70 degrees Celsius for 2 to 3 hours, until they become completely hard and dry. Once dried, lightly toast them in a dry pan for 2 to 3 minutes with no oil. This step reduces bitterness and enhances the aroma. Place the toasted calyx pieces into 500 milliliters of water, and simmer on low heat for 20 to 30 minutes, until the water turns a deep brown color. Remove the calyx and drink this tea twice daily, in the morning and evening. If the taste is too bitter, adding 1 dried date or a small amount of honey while simmering works well. The second recipe is a calyx gargle. Allow the cooled tea described above to reach room temperature. Hold a mouthful of the tea in your mouth, and gargle gently for 30 seconds to 1 minute, focusing on swollen or bleeding areas. Spit it out. Do this 2 to 3 times daily, ideally after brushing teeth following meals. This direct contact method allows the polyphenol compounds to act locally on the gum tissue, before being diluted by digestion. The third recipe is the calyx powder method, which is documented in traditional medicinal texts going back centuries. Dry the calyx completely, then toast them in a pan until they are charred. Grind the charred material into a fine powder using a mortar or small blender. Apply a tiny amount of this powder to a fingertip or soft toothbrush and massage gently, in circular motions over inflamed or bleeding gum areas. Use this method 2 to 3 times per week, always with very light pressure to avoid irritating the gum tissue. Here is a simple 7-day plan to begin. On day 1, buy an eggplant. Cook with it for dinner and start collecting and drying the calyx. On days 2 and 3, continue drying. On day 4, prepare your first batch of calyx tea and start both drinking it and using it as a gargle. On day 5, continue the gargle routine after every meal, and begin monitoring the bleeding frequency. On day 6, collect more calyx pieces from a second eggplant to build up your supply. On day 7, review changes in gum tenderness, swelling, and bleeding frequency. Continue this 7-day pattern weekly, and check for measurable changes in a blood test or dental examination after 1 month. 2 important cautions before closing. First, eggplant calyx tea supports gum health, but does not replace professional dental care. If you have heavy bleeding, pus, loose teeth, or a pocket depth greater than 4 millimeters, as measured by a dentist, you need clinical treatment. Use this tea as a complement to dental care, not as a substitute for it. Second, eggplant belongs to the nightshade family, and contains small amounts of solanine, particularly in the calyx and seeds. Boiling reduces solanine content significantly. For healthy adults, drinking 1 to 2 cups of properly prepared calyx tea daily is generally considered safe. However, pregnant women, nursing mothers, those with nightshade allergies, those with sensitive digestive systems, and people who tend toward cold constitution and frequent loose stools should start with a reduced amount or consult a healthcare provider before use. The eggplant calyx has been regarded as medicinal in East Asian traditional medicine for over 1,000 years. Modern analytical science has now confirmed that this judgment was correct, revealing a precise profile of compounds that directly address the mechanisms behind gum inflammation, oxidative tissue damage, and vascular permeability. From today, do not throw away the eggplant calyx. Dry it, steep it, and let the science work. If this video helped you, please share it with someone who struggles with gum health, and let us know in the comments whether you have ever tried eggplant calyx tea or plan to.